Hey everybody,
Okay.
welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We are at episode 658 after our week off. It's a new year, but it's the same old PC Per. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Brett Van Spoonberg. Welcome to 2022.
Yes, January 5 as we record this, as a matter of fact. And you can subscribe to be alerted via email at pcper.com/subscribe and find out when we go live for events like this podcast recording session. And you can help support the site by heading over to patreon.com/pcper. And on that front, we have a patron, Sir Bogative. They bumped their patronage. Thank you, Sir Bogative.
They did
Appreciate
indeed. My opinion, I'm noticing that, Sebastian, you're doing some specialty posts over at Patreon nowadays.
Because we were off last week, I put up an unboxing video to tide people over. Just little silly stuff like that. Stuff that is not necessarily going to make it to the main channel. And because I now feel free to do that, expect more in that vein. Because it's easy to point a camera at something and just start talking.
He's doing really well. You guys should jump on there. And
I want to make the Patreon into, I mentioned LGR when we were in the pre-show, but I want to make it kind of like LGR has his main channel, which has like 1.5 million subscribers. And then he has his secondary channel called LGR Blurbs, where he does quick unscripted stuff, like unboxing something or talking about something off the cuff. I could use Patreon for that. Any of us could. Talk about something real quick, throw it up on the Patreon. And if it's a good idea. If the patrons think it's good
Any
enough,
of us could?
Any of us.
You trust me?
Yes.
With access
Josh,
to Patreon?
and Josh, while we're on the subject, I did a poll on Patreon a couple weeks ago. Overwhelming majority of respondents want the mail bag back.
How do they spell mail again? What was it?
M-A-L-E.
That's right.
Yep. They wanted Josh's mail bag.
Mail bag. That's what they wanted.
All right. Now I know the top story has to be 3D V-Cache, but let's hold off for just a moment on that.
Wait a minute.
Obviously,
Wait a minute.
we record
You yell at me burying the lead. You yell at me.
Before any of that, I've completely forgotten what we're doing here. Before any of that, let's go to Laramie, Wyoming, and talk to Josh about food.
Indeed.
Yes, this was, I can't remember the exact name. It was like the Tot Burger or something like that, but it sounds blah, but it's really tasty. This is a burger with only a single patty, right? But it's got smashed in there a bunch of tater tots. And then on top of that is pulled pork. And then on top of that is a lavish amount of queso. It's a very subtle burger. It's not, it's in your face in that you've got to put it in your face. But, it wasn't spicy, but it was tasty. And it sure filled me up. And the pulled pork was nicely done. Of course, the burger is always good. But you add the tater tots and the queso on there. And it's just extravagant. It's just, happily excess is never enough. And this is excess. And I approve this burger.
Speaking of things the whole family can enjoy, AMD, they're bringing it all to the table. New graphics, new processor technology, new things you can actually buy, like on the mobile side of things. So let's start off with our CES 2022 coverage by talking about the Ryzen 6000 series mobile. And this may sound boring. It's like, it's mobile, and usually that's like a half generation behind. No, we're getting Zen 3 Plus CPU cores. And finally, the wait for RDNA 2 graphics in a CPU is over. This is Zen 3 Plus CPU cores, up to 8 of them, and up to 12 RDNA 2 compute units on the new 6 nanometer tech and a new platform. It's all new, Josh.
Wait, it's a new platform?
It's a new mobile platform. It says, quote,
yeah.
An all new platform, end quote.
It's an all new platform. No, this is really, it's got the works. Zen 3 Plus. That's pretty awesome. It's an all-in-one monolithic die. It's got RDNA 2 cores. This is huge for the mobile space, and they've got, they haven't talked much about TDPs, but we'd expect to go from 10 10 up to 35, maybe even 45, and in the really high end space. It's Zen 3 Plus. So you're going to have architectural enhancements as compared to the well performing Zen 3 that we currently have with the 5000 series. This is a massive update for AMD, and it looks to be, I guess they did talk about the TDPs a bit. This is gonna be fun. It's nice to see. Yeah, 15 through 45 watts.
Yeah, the high end SKU is the Ryzen 9 6980HX, 8 cores, 16 threads, max boost 5 gigahertz.
5 gigahertz. It's pretty good for mobile for AMD. I mean, I sure Intel has been doing that for their mobile stuff, but it's picoseconds of, and I'm sure that AMD will have the same, time up at that max boost. But yeah, it's 2.4 gigahertz for the RDNA cores. That's nice as well. That's going to have some pretty solid performance across the board, both CPU and GPU. And it's going to be interesting to see. We haven't talked about, is this going to be a DDR5? It's going to be DDR4? I don't know.
I thought that was addressed somewhere. I think it's going to have DDR5
I thought it was
support. Yeah.
5.
Yep. It says advanced DDR memory for faster mobile computing. It's PCIe 4, USB 4, and then they're using Qualcomm or MediaTek for a Wi-Fi 6E solution. And so all the stuff is there. They're checking all the boxes. Obviously, you're not going to get PCIe 5 mobile, even on the Intel side, because it's mobile. You typically are going for more power savings than the latest
Microsoft Pluton.
Yeah, this is a very compelling platform, and those, I mean, obviously, the very high end, like we're talking 45 watt plus TDP for the 6900 and 6980HX, but those are going to be in bigger chassis. I'm sure that it's going to be like 65 watts to get the maximum power, like performance boost, GPU performance out of it. But I'm curious how 6 nanometer improves efficiency, performance per watt, that sort of thing. But another technology.
How many RDNA cores in the 6500 XT?
6500 XT? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember either.
I'll have to pull that up.
Probably look at that. And
yeah, so we'll look at that shortly. But we have to talk about the other thing that they kind of slid into.
Oh, yes, we do.
Press release.
Well, hang on. What about their gaming benchmarks on the APU series? I mean, they're saying 1.8 to 2x, so it's looking really, really good. Very strong. Good. But that's 1080p low, 1080p medium, but 60 plus frames, which is looking great. And add on their super resolution. It's probably going to be pretty legit. I'm looking forward to seeing.
So apparently there's 16 CUs in a 6500 XT, and so you're only down 4. And even though
12,
you're down 400 megahertz as well, that's still you're fast approaching the new budget $200 1080p card. That's
exactly. Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
In what?
Yeah, we'll talk about that
reality
later. But anyway,
$100 and available though.
$200. That's a stupid number. That's okay. Not real.
All right. The other thing that was slipped into the same, AMD had a lot going on in this presentation. They talked about the Radeon, but they also talked about the first CPU with 3D V cache, which is the Ryzen 7 5800X3D. It's not a 5900.
Now, sadly, what you see there
are the only two in existence.
No. Those are not the 3D V cache ones. Those are Zen 4 chips.
Oh, okay. Well, this is the picture they sent. This is one of 2 images they sent for this press release. The other one was the back of a CPU with no identifying markings on it at all. So,
well, they want to show you the LGA.
It had pins. It wasn't LGA.
Oh, really? Well, never mind that.
So this is a socket AM4 processor. This is not the new socket. This is not a new platform. This is something you can drop into an existing board. So it'll be available for socket AM4 later in spring 2022 is what they said. It's still 105 watt TDP. Boost frequencies are down a little bit. This is up to 4.5 gigahertz, but you're getting all that cache. the total cache is 100 megabytes on an 8-core, 16-thread part.
That's so much bigger than my original 16 megabytes on my Pentium 133 CPU.
And that was total system RAM you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think they dropped the base frequency as well from 3.8 to 3.4.
So they're talking about delivering an average of 5% faster 1080p gaming across select titles than the competition. It was versus a 12900K.
So there's a lot of good things in here. I mean, there are people with concerns, and they're understandable concerns. It's like, why does it only go up to 4.6 or 4.5 gigahertz as compared to 4.7, 4.8 for a regular one? And you kind of look at the whole thing as a system, because it really is. I mean, you've obviously got the CPU, and then you've got the 3D V cache on top of that. And there are some limitations there. I mean, cache typically takes up a lot more power when it's powered on and actually doing work. And so if you're trying to keep at that 105 watt TDP, and when we actually get into a systems, I'm pretty sure that it will pull more power than a regular 5800X. And even then, 5800X still pulls a pretty good amount of juice. You've got so much more efficiency in not having to go to main memory as much. Memory controllers take up a lot of power as it is, and then you've got latency involved and more power. And so when you have a backside cache, a large, it's an enhanced level 3 cache, that it's just right there on the bus that's internal to the CPU. Well, that's a terrible description of what it is, but anyway, it's low latency, far lower latency than DDR4. It's lower latency than kind of the previous iteration Intel released, the 5775C Broadwell for desktop, which had 128 megs, I think, of eDRAM with the Iris Pro graphics attached to it. But that was kind of on a separate bus, and I think it looked at it as L4 cache. So AMD did some pretty interesting things with their 3D V cache. I mean, the amount of bandwidth that it gets is tremendous. I mean, it's just, again, it's an expanded L3 cache from what the CPU views it as. And so we don't take a latency hit. We have just as much bandwidth, but we have a huge amount of memory that you can store all this commonly accessed data instead of going back to main memory. And so gaming performance is the thing that they're really pushing with this. And I mean, we're going to see other improvements in terms of performance, but maybe not as much, because we are getting, a little bit hammered on the clock speed to hit the thermals and all the power requirements that, throwing this extra chip on with all of this cache inevitably requires. But the thing that also kind of interests me is that so far there is one SKU, and I believe that probably will only be one SKU. They're looking at this, and this is my analysis, not what they're saying, but it kind of seems to me that they're looking at this as almost a pipe cleaning type product to test out this kind of stacking technology to see if it is efficient, sustainable, and cost effective. If you've got multiple SKUs, you can maybe do things like if you had a 5800X 3D and a 5600X 3D, that would be like, hey, there's a certain defect in this 5800X, and we're just going to downgrade this to a 5600X 3D. I mean, that's a possibility, but you're also going to be looking at quite a bit more money, I think, for this SKU as compared to a standard 5800X. So they're juggling a lot of things right here now to make sure. I mean, this is not going to be, a market leader for them. I think that it will sell far less than a typical 5800X, as well as even the 5900X, because a lot of people like more threads. I mean, that certainly delivers it. And again, it's going to be interesting to benchmark this.
Yeah, even more importantly, It challenges the supremacy of the 12900K. It challenges the gaming supremacy of the 12900K. That's
maybe
their
even
deal right there.
KS.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, gaming is the big thing that people want to hear about because that's like a $12 billion industry this year. I'm probably undercutting it. I mean, there's some serious scratch. And, you've got to have the best gaming processor out there for a PC market.
And hopefully get it to market, because that's really important right now.
Speaking of getting things to market in gaming, they also announced a new graphics card. And we're getting down, we talked about this earlier, $200 price point, theoretically.
In theory.
This is the Radeon RX 6500 XT. What isn't to like? It's small. It only has 2 display outputs total. It
can't mine worth shit.
4 gigabytes of RAM.
It has 4 gigabytes.
Well, I mean,
of RAM.
it can mine some things, but Ethereum is kind of out of the picture because that requires 8 gigs for the mining of the Ethereum. But maybe Dogecoin and some of these other ones, they will still do it. But but I mean, the way they're doing this is, it does look like this is truly a budget gaming product that they're trying desperately to get into people's hands, and that's the reason probably why it's only got 4 gigs of memory.
And at 1080p,
if you throw in 8, then the miner's going to grab it up. But at 4, you can still play 1080p games okay,
or better.
Some of the newer ones will have issues, but you'll have to drop down quality settings to get it to run on there. But it's something that is not a console. Somebody can maybe actually buy for $200 in a month or so.
Well, maybe.
I mean, that's a pretty optimistic.
It is.
Pent-up demand alone, even if it's not used for mining.
Huge. True.
Now, if we go back in time, think back to June 29 of 2016.
Oh, things were so nice back then. Little did we know.
When AMD had this RX 480 card.
I've heard of it.
And that card, let me just double check. I could be wrong about this. That had, how much memory did this have?
8.
Oh, it started with 4.
Okay.
You could get 4.
Yeah, there was 4, and then there was an 8 gigabyte version. And it was only GDDR5. So it would be an upgrade. If you were coming from a 480 to a 6500 XT, it is an upgrade.
Well,
guaranteed to pull less power.
Well, that's true for sure. But no, if you believe,
you also got ray tracing support.
Yep, it should be relatively about 40% faster than a 570.
Oh, okay.
According to to what they're saying. We'll see. It does have better specs than the iGPUs you were talking about. It actually does have more. Yeah, 4 more CUs.
Running at 400 megahertz more. 2.8 gigahertz.
The clocks are nuts. The clocks are crazy on this. Look at this.
That's what I was going to say, Josh.
This says the fastest clocks in a gaming card. Well, here's why. Up to 2,610 megahertz.
I read 2.8 somewhere. Where did I see 2.8?
That could be like the max boost.
Yeah.
I think they do base game.
Every card has 5 clocks now, so good luck.
Yeah.
No, there are 4 clocks.
There are 4 clocks. For a 75 watt card, they actually added that 6-pin extra PCIe power as well. I thought that was interesting. Supposedly for only 75 watts. So it probably draws a bit more.
Yeah.
And it still has infinity cache. So I mean they can get that 305 gigabyte per second total number.
There it is.
But what is it?
And if it really does sell for $200, I don't hate it.
Oh, no, absolutely. If this was the card you could buy for that, it would...
Yeah.
I would love to be able to walk into a Micro Center and just pick one of these
3 years ago, you would have laughed at it and said only 30% more than an RX 580 that you can buy for $160. Why would you spend that extra? I mean, you'd get the ray tracing support and some of the other... But... you're sacrificing 4 gigs of memory for things like even Far Cry 5 required 6 to 8. And so but now we're at a point where They're not selling the 580 anymore. You can get a Vega 56 for around $600.
Wow.
Which is still a good 1080p gaming card, too.
It is.
Fair.
It is. But yeah, we live in a very, very strange world as compared to what it was 3 years ago when this would have been laughed at. But now, right now, we kind of see this as a life preserver for PC gaming.
Doesn't the Steam
That and
hardware
pre-built
survey?
systems.
Doesn't the Steam hardware survey still have everybody on GTX era cards predominantly still? Pretty sure it does.
GTX 1050 is still,
world.
1050, 1060.
That's what I thought.
And the RX 580 that has been
And the 580. Yep. Long legs on that one.
Oh man, my kid's still games on that thing.
I still have
He
a
doesn't
machine
do
with a
anything
580
really
in it.
exciting.
If you go by the Steam hardware survey, you'd think that everybody on the Earth is either using an NVIDIA card or Intel integrated graphics. And there's like a few people out there with AMD Radeon cards. But
That's how it reads. That's right.
And the 768p is still actually relatively popular.
And not only that, but obviously we can infer from this that AMD graphics card users are smarter because they don't give out their info and data to other people.
you know what?
That's probably it.
It's kind of like trying to run a tech site when the kind of tech savvy people who will read such a tech site will all use an ad blocker. I mean, it's just,
That is a problem.
What is the
Yeah.
rationale here?
Yeah.
Wow.
Doesn't make any money, I can tell you that.
Call this bright.
Untoward Media in the YouTube chat says an RX 480 8 GB is $450 used on eBay.
Oh, really?
Holy cow.
That I believe it. Oh my goodness.
I'm sitting on a gold mine.
NVIDIA, not to be outdone by AMD. And by the way,
Wah, wah.
CES 2022. Now, in years past, CES, there'd be an event one morning, and then like NVIDIA would be that night, and then AMD might be the next morning. No. Everybody had their stuff all within like the same 3-hour window of the same day. So
Yeah. It was AMD, NVIDIA, then Intel, and then Qualcomm.
Yeah.
Qualcomm.
So while I was working on AMD news, because Lisa Sue was on stage at 7 a.m. Nevada time, so 10 a.m. Eastern, and like trying to get screenshots of the live stream, and then a few minutes after that, I got the email from AMD with the actual press release. So I'm I'm like writing up news, and then I have to have Intel news ready, and if they'd actually pre-briefed us, and then there was NVIDIA's event, so I'd have all of the NVIDIA news. So moving on to that real quick, NVIDIA at CES, they did desktop. Oh, we'll get to the one more thing here in a moment. I'll save that in case people don't know.
Well, that's what one more thing is for.
Yes, RTX 3050 desktop. That was rumored. That's real. But there's an interesting twist to the story. It's almost like they knew what AMD was going to do. And then the mobile RTX 3070 Ti and 3080 Ti. And there had already been rumors about the 3080 Ti mobile with its 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. And they're going to have a whole S-load of new laptops, of course. 160 new laptops coming with these new Ti cards, or Ti. I call it Ti. But let's talk about the desktop GPU. The RTX 3050. Interestingly, they don't have a lot of hard specifications here, but 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory at 249. I wonder if they were originally considering 4 gigabytes at 200, but 8 for 249 is more compelling to me. I would pay the extra $50 for double the RAM over the
Agreed.
Radeon card.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of OEM partners. We've already had press releases for some of them, but that card is...
And of course, Ethereum can be, even though they may take this as a low hash rate, it's still going to be used for
Yep.
exactly that.
I hope not, but yeah. January 27 is when we'll know if they're all sold out everywhere.
I bet we will see probably far more 6500 XTs on the market that you can buy, even with inflated prices, than RTX 3050s.
Yeah, I mean, judging by the current market, I believe you, because that Radeon's the only thing you can buy. You can buy a 6900 XT, and that's about it.
Well, you can do the others. I mean, you can buy a $900 6700
Okay.
XT,
Well,
which
you're
still
right.
sucks.
You can,
But you can
you're not
get it.
overpaying as much For the 6900
For a
XT.
6900. Yep.
It's only about 50% over MSRP.
As
It's
compared to
still
100.
really awful.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had them on the shelf at Micro
Just
Center.
complete.
Last time I was there, they
AMD
actually had
needs to send me
69,
one of their
67,
Halo
68.
6900 XTs, but of course,
with the liquid
that's not
cooler?
going to happen because
The
one, you've
water-cooled
got to
ones.
actually put out content.
Well,
Yeah.
you just have to. No, you just need to be an influencer. You're already friendly to Team Red, Josh. We could swing this. You just need, I'll give you my contacts.
You can do it.
Sure.
I'm not important enough. Maybe you are.
Josh,
NVIDIA, by the way,
Well, no.
He's literally been ignored by better people.
No.
Exactly.
It's hard. It's easier for them to ignore you when you're not seeing them in person. I've noticed. All right. The one more thing, they held up the 3090 Ti, which
AKA
it's calling it Ti the whole time, but
Yes.
unobtainium.
yes.
Yes.
TI stands for tanium.
So NVIDIA teased the 3090 Ti. They called it a quote monster GPU end quote. Did not want to share a lot of information about it, but did say that its 24 gigabytes of memory, the same as the regular 3090, would be 21 gigabit per second GDDR6X.
Which is a bit
fast.
better.
Yeah, it was 19.5 originally, so that's quite a bit higher. Now, videocards.com goes further than NVIDIA was willing to. It's a full implementation of GA102, so 10,752 CUDA cores. It's the 21 gigabit per second modules is part of the reason that the card is going to have a TDP of 450 watts. And it's going to be the first GPU to utilize a 16-pin power connector.
That's custom, I believe.
Yeah.
Not included in the box.
And so if I go over to
Hey, that,
videocards.com here.
That GA102, just as a quick reminder, is the same for the top three cards.
So GA102 350 in the 3090 Ti. 84 GPU clusters. They used to call those SMs.
Top four cards, sorry.
84 RT cores, 336 tensors and TMUs. Base clock of 1560, boost clock of 1860 megahertz. Same 384-bit bus, higher memory clock, so an effective bandwidth.
1 terabyte per second bandwidth.
Yes.
Ah, they finally caught up with Vega.
They caught up with Vegas Radeon 7.
Yes, finally. Whew.
So that's a lot. And then, of course, there's the 3050 again. Exciting. 130 watt card. Single 6-pin, I think, on that one, or no? 8
And then the other annoying thing I ran into was some people were describing the shaders had 40 teraflops. Period. End of story. Like, okay, at what precision would that be or anything? But assuming that they're staying the same, they're looking at 40 shader teraflops to 29.2 for the non-TI.
Wow.
Okay, it was single.
Yeah, that's
version.
big.
Good question from the chat, which is, hey, what kind of power supply are you going to need with your Alder Lake CPU and a 3090 Ti?
Oh, boy.
A separate
You
power
need a
supply.
minimum of 850. Minimum
Actually, what
850.
I saw was 1,000, but it depends on
1,000,
the
yeah.
vendor.
That's just for the GPU.
You know, you remember, you want to
Alder
operate in the efficiency range of your PSU, not at its peak operating range. You want to get...
Yeah.
We had to get. Okay, just as an aside, we had dual 3090 at work with a Threadripper, and we had a HX 1200 watt power supply. And in that combination of Threadripper and two 3090s, it would trip and shut the machine down. We had to get the high-end Corsair AX 1600 for it to work stable. And that just makes me mad because that's so far, I mean, it's pulling so far more than spec than what you can build for. It's not even funny.
Yeah, you can't even run. You can't run storage or fans if you've got that set up because the Threadripper is going to pull 400 under load, and then the two graphics cards are going to pull 400 each. And that's, I mean, you're pushing the limits, and
Yeah,
that's
right off
without
the bat.
anything else. Now, every fan, every hard drive in that system is going to just stress it. RGBs, forget about RGB at that point. I need a separate PSU for my RGB lighting.
Yeah.
Actually. An RGB PSU, actually.
And strangely enough, he's got Peltier cooling on them too.
Do you remember that power supply that we talked about a long time ago? It was like 2 power supplies in the same ATX chassis.
Oh yeah, those
space.
like redundant power supplies.
One of those might do, but they weren't that big. They were maybe like
the water
750s. Water cooled.
The water cooled power supplies.
Oh no, there
are water cooled power supplies.
There are.
FSP, I know, has one.
Yeah, they might have been the same people who made that dual.
Yeah, it was FSP. Yeah.
We know Alder Lake takes a lot of power. What about if you shrink it down? What about if you put it in a lower power envelope? Then you get Alder Lake Intel Core H series. So that's 12th gen core. The according to Intel, I'm quoting them here, the fastest mobile processor, period, ever, period. So that the extra period is for emphasis, I guess. And because that's how, young people talk now, or how they write. They're claiming they have the best mobile gaming platform. We'll see, because AMD has a new platform too. And the AMD actually had their announcement first, so I don't know. Is this still correct?
Oh,
we were pre-briefed with information that said that they had the fastest mobile processor, and then AMD came out early and said, "Well, we have a compelling new platform."
Does anyone ever actually sue over these things? Marketing? No.
I don't know.
So it doesn't matter because they're industry leading. They're the fastest. In what? Well, we need to get you some numbers on a few other things, but wait for our lawyers to get back to you.
Right, and there's a lot of fine print involved.
Yeah,
they offered their own testing. I have a little section here called Intel provided performance numbers, which you can look at. But that was comparing it to the previous generation AMD parts, though. That's the problem. So I will show you the lineup here. First of all, here is the breakdown of the new H series processor. If you're looking at the video, you can see that it has 8 lanes of Gen 4 for the graphics. It has 2x4 PCIe Gen 4 for storage. It supports LP4X and LP5 and regular DDR4 and DDR5. There is, let's see, there's Thunderbolt I know is supported. What else does it have? Wi-Fi 6E Gig Plus, of course. Thunderbolt 4. Yep. So, I mean, this is very similar to what we've seen on desktop for 12th gen. It's just lower power.
Except 4.0 rather than 5.
Right.
PCIe.
Here's the processor, the SKU stack. This is H series only. They also announced some lower power parts, but I didn't write about those here. On the flagship, this is the 12900HK I'm talking about. It's a 14-core part. Interesting that it's a mix of 6 performance cores and 8 efficiency cores. Efficiency cores apparently only come in 4s. I must not have been paying attention when I talked about these. So they can only be in clusters of 4. So you have some odd mixes here where, for example, that flagship part, the high-end parts are 6-core performance, 8 efficiency. And then you have a part, the i7-12650H, it's 6 performance, 4 efficiency. And you have another part. You finally have one part down the list, the i5-12450H, that has an even number of both, 4 performance, 4 efficiency. So it's just kind of a weird mix here. But I don't know. They're 45-watt parts, all of them. Should be significantly faster because of the improved architecture. So I am looking forward to improved performance from 12th gen, and it's kind of sad that there's so many laptops out there with 11th gen parts because that's all that's been available up to this point. You could buy a great desktop replacement workstation type machine that's $5,000 and has a high-end mobile graphics card in it, and it's just going to feel significantly slower than a 12th gen CPU in comparison. Here's some of their charts. Up to 28% faster gaming compared to their 11th gen flagship. This is just Intel versus Intel. And oddly enough, the 28% faster gaming does not change on this next chart. I don't know if this might be a typo, because they add in the 5900HX, but they don't change. These numbers for the AMD part are significantly lower than the baseline, but the percentage didn't change. I have no idea. I guess they're going to leave it up to independent reviewers to tell you how much faster it is. But, of course, AMD's new parts, which should be out, I guess, starting next month, are going to be significantly faster than the 5900HX, so we'll have to see. This is a little bit more interesting to me, anyway. If you look at something like Premiere, here's Puget Bench Adobe Premiere performance, 44% higher with the 12th gen than the 11th gen. Lightroom Classic, 10% faster than the 11th gen. Autodesk, AutoCAD, 14% faster than the 11th gen. So if you're looking at a lot of these workstation laptops are Intel powered, believe it or not. And so these numbers matter a lot if you're doing these kind of content creator professional applications. Blender, 30% less time versus what? Versus in baseline? Oh, versus baseline. So not that much faster than the Ryzen part, not that much faster than the M1 Max part, but a lot faster than the 11980HK, which apparently is kind of a dog. So the 11th gen laptop era is coming to an end, thankfully. And look at all these fancy platform technologies.
Deep Link.
Yeah, Deep Link. It's like a power management, power balancing thing between the GPU and CPU and power sharing, hyper encode, which apparently is going to compete with the stuff that Apple was talking about with the M1 Max, where things like DaVinci Resolve exports are going to be significantly faster because it has built-in like encode decode stuff. So
good for them. They had to do something. They
did. I'm curious. And it's coming, let's see, over 100 designs during Intel's fastest H series ramp, which means their OEMs are going to have laptops very soon. Next month. February 2022. That's the H series. Josh, let's talk about storage. Phison.
Okay. Go. All right. Well, Phison, they've introduced their E26 PCIe Gen 5 controller. This is not going to be available anytime soon. It's going to be probably after August, much like most of the other Gen 5 controllers that we have seen kind of teased to date. Now, this essentially doubles the bandwidth of a previous PCIe 4.0 part. And it's going to be a little bit hotter, probably. So we've got to worry more about power. It's a 12 nanometer based controller, from what I understand. But yeah, it's going to be one of the first Gen 5s that we will start seeing towards the end of summer. A lot of people were thinking, hey, Intel just released a Gen 5, even though aren't there current Intel M.2 slots? They're limited to 4.0.
Yes,
on the desktop. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, yeah, we're gonna have more, infrastructure type stuff, platform dealio bobs coming around that will support these natively in M.2. But there are, PCIe 5.0, PCIe Express slot-based ones that people have tested, namely our friend Mr. Shrout, who did a little video before CES that showed the performance of such a thing. I think it was pre-production Samsung SSDs that they plugged in there, that they're the enterprise version, that he had to have the very specific adapter that did PCI Express slots to the I don't even know what connector that is that those square little SSD boxes required. They look like old SATA 6, but obviously are not, because they were pulling 12 gigabyte per second throughput, and then they showed off RAID, and it was obviously even more. So, but they had to do that without the graphics card because of limitations of Intel's implementation of PCI Express 5.0. Go ahead, Jeremy.
They gave Alan a soldering rod. I was saying looked like Mark Zuckerberg there. No, they gave Alan a soldering iron and the ability to design an interface.
Oh, what is happening down here? What is this? thing.
That would be the thing.
That's the SSD.
Is that an active cooling system here?
Possibly. Turn it over, Ryan. There you go. No, well, I think the adapter may have an active cooling system.
I just see a circle here. I thought it might be a fan. But
but they had to, if you look at the below that the
okay.
There you go.
Oh, that's
not
there
active.
it is.
It looks like a fan.
Probably
mount.
could. And
Yeah.
It is. I think it is.
During their benchmarks, they probably had a giant fan on it. But let's see. He's running a test.
What's interesting about that adapter is that it's got PCIe power, but it doesn't require it, obviously, because it's not connected.
By the way, this
But yeah, he's testing out the
dreadful through with Twitter's compression. I just have to say.
Good job on that. Yeah, so he was just testing out the the main M.2 PCIe 4.0, and now he's going to this new one.
Ooh.
And he's getting damn near 14 gigabyte per second.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Is it just coincidence that that's where the scale ends?
He's redlining. By the way, let's go back to the
my amp goes to 14.
Let's go back to the beginning of the video. Look behind Ryan's head here. You can see the old
PC per colors
stripes back there. This backdrop can't fool us. We know what this is.
We know where you are.
You're in the old office.
Yeah. So anyway, it's great to see that we do have new controllers coming. Again, it's going to be the end of summer, if not a little bit later, because again, and I'm saying again, because again, Intel doesn't have a PCIe 5.0 M.2 slot. And in fact, I'm kind of wondering how that's going to handle power, because there is a limit to how much power you can throw through those things. If you've ever taken a look at those leads, they're pretty densely packed. And these things they could pull 11 watts. And when you've got a handful of power and ground leads, things start getting interesting. I could be wrong, but AMD won't have anything until AM5 for PCIe 5.0. So, it's going to be an interesting balancing act to see when they start releasing these products and when there's actually platforms that can take advantage of them. Now, of course, in terms of Phison, they did show off the regular PCI Express by 8 slot based SSD. And those may be, they are, well, not maybe, but they are quite likely to be the first products that will hit the market. And those will be, enterprise-based units that will cost quite a bit of money. But, I mean, their performance will be very, very good with 1.5 to 2 million IOPS, I think, is around that. So the E26, that's the latest generation. You've got some pretty good cache, memory chips in there, and a lot of room for improvement.
A lot of room for
It's going to be
activities.
interesting to see. Exactly.
All these empty pads over here.
But
You
yeah.
can add a bunch of backup. What are these for? Like power
Super
loss?
capacitors.
Those are all caps.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what all the empty stuff is, but the storage keeps going ahead. But yeah, I mean, when people thought that Intel was going to be releasing PCIe 5.0, we thought, these M.2 drives are going to be coming out soon after, because when AMD released their AM4 Ryzen 3000 series, which was the first PCIe 4.0 base parts, you had motherboards right off the bat that could do that. Even older ones, before they got downclocked via BIOS updates to PCIe 3.0. There were those initial Phison E16 based.
Yep.
I think was the was it E18? I can't remember. But anyway, but it was the lower.
Was second. Yeah.
It was the lower ones that could only go up to 5 gigabytes per second. And they were a jump up from PCIe 3.0, but not the big jump that we saw about a year later when the second generation PCIe 4.0 devices came out. It's going to be a while still until we have PCIe 5.0 devices for the desktop, and they do have some hurdles coming forward, especially in terms of power consumption on these products.
We also need an excuse to have them too. What is it really going to change? Well, okay, but for the average listener,
4.0, shortest lived interface ever.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
Not really, because it's already been out for 2 years now.
I guess, yeah.
Last year,
1.5 years,
but
it's still going to be.
It has been 2 years.
It's still
feel
going
like
to be.
it.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
analogous to this, we're talking PCIe 4 versus 5. How useful is 5 right now? It isn't really useful. There's very little, if anything, that's actually available for it.
There you go. Yeah.
You don't need it for a while. It's something to put
no
on
graphics
box.
cards.
Yeah, there's no graphics
PCIe
cards. So use
5.0
it for a while. Well, what about DDR4 versus DDR5?
Anyway,
one of our favorite subjects here on the podcast: DDR4 versus DDR5.
True.
Why not both? And this is from before CES, but I love this. I couldn't believe this was even.
But at least they didn't mix memory controllers. They went a totally different way.
Hey, speaking of boards with
I have
components
no
on
idea
them,
how this even works, but apparently it does.
the DDR5 to DDR4 board. I mean, it's an elegant solution to the problem of, I got this Z690 board, I got the new processor, but I can't find any RAM in stock anymore. What do I do? Well, apparently, it's the Apex board, I think, that's supposed to be shipping with this, if this is true. You'll get the board, you won't be able to find the RAM, but don't worry, you can use this DDR5, DDR4 adapter and then have this massive and potentially very flimsy tower of memory on top of
it's a tower
board.
of power.
I do not want my son anywhere near this because there'd be nothing. If the RAM is just sitting atop this,
Yeah, and I recognize that RAM. That's Trident Z Royal. That's stupid expensive RAM.
And it's heavy too because of the big heat sinks on it or the heat spreaders. I worry about the stability of something like this. It makes me think of speakers on top of speaker stands with nothing.
And if you notice, they don't have them running in pairs.
Yeah, I see that.
Nah.
Do you also notice that it blocks almost all of the air to this scythe?
Yeah, I was going to say, am I going to have some heatsink compatibility issues with this adapter?
Can I drill holes in the PCB to allow airflow through it? Is Steve at Gamers Nexus going to drill holes in this?
Speed holes.
It seems excessively
Literally speed
I feel like here, maybe up here, you could drill some holes.
You don't think there's any traces in there in the multi-layer?
Follow the traces and drill holes where they are.
Just add some tiny little fans in there to increase the airflow. It won't make any electrical noise whatsoever.
Here's a funny backstory on this extension / converter / whatever the hell this is that one of the reasons why DDR5 is difficult to come by, obviously, it's like so many other things, is the chip shortage, right? Well, one of the very same chips that is used in DDR5 that is in short supply must be used on this converter in order to purchase it.
Well,
that doesn't solve the problem then.
but the problem is I can't find the memory. So, I mean, if we put the power delivery for DDR5 on a separate board, won't that... I don't know. I guess that doesn't make any sense, does it?
You have twisted me up in your logic. I no longer care.
Maybe they had prototyped this and
my God.
and maybe it got out.
There's an idea. That's just maybe what happened.
Because I don't remember seeing I have not got a press release in my inbox from ASUS saying, hey, we're putting a DDR5 adapter card in our boards now. Maybe.
It's not the kind of thing you want to share with people, really.
It would be a fun little extra. Like they put all sorts of things in these high-end boards to justify the price, obviously. Like, why is this one $700? Well, because it's got like a multi M.2 riser card on it, and it's got like this DIM.2 thing and other accessories. Well, what if it also had
and they
DDR5
don't
card?
include the DVD with the old BIOS on it in that version and that board?
No, I actually think it was this MSI board that I talked about last time, the Tomahawk.
Mm-hmm.
I was unpacking this all the accessories earlier and taking pictures of it and stuff for a review, and it doesn't have a CD. It's the first board in a long time that has not had a disc. It had a USB stick.
Oh my gosh.
With the drivers on it. So
How modern.
Good job,
How modern.
MSI.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if my Gaming 7 had a CD in it. I don't think it did. It didn't have a USB stick either. I remember that. But I don't think it had a CD either.
I appreciate my outdated drivers being on a thumb drive that I can reuse for something else, though.
Nice.
Well, it's better than the CD.
I'll turn that thumb
It's way
drive
better.
into the BIOS update stick.
Yeah.
Correct.
NVIDIA BlueField. Please, Jeremy, what is this?
Well, I mean, all of you losers that are stuck on your 10 gigabits NICs, you really need to move up to the new standard.
The new hotness.
Serious. Yeah. This is the BlueField Smart NIC, which, long story short, is essentially a network card with a serious CPU on it to handle everything that's going on.
I think the original killer NIC on super steroids.
And without being a lie in the marketing side, or at least doesn't seem to be, because they ran
the
these
original
on...
killer NIC actually had that programmability, and it was an expensive card.
Yeah,
And
all right.
you could do those apps and whatever on there, but then nobody was using them. So the next generation of killer NIC, they axed all of that and made a bunch of applications that ran on the CPU that then controlled the network card. So, but yeah, the original killer NIC is a good idea.
Yeah, you're
but
right,
it was aimed at the wrong market.
Yeah, and perhaps just a little bit early. But other than that,
and not performing very well.
And no, that was the other problem. Is it even still? But you're right; it didn't first offload everything onto the CPU. Like, yeah, he ain't heavy. He's my network card. So anyways, getting back to BlueField.
Wow.
What they did is they set up a 4x 100 gig E connections between two HP ProLiant servers. And they decided to see just how much throughput they could get, which was 41.5 million IOPS. The old Optane P5800X is about 2 million IOPS. The previous record was 13.8. So this is just utterly insane. And you're probably not going to see it come to your computer anytime soon. But for inside of a data cluster, this is just brilliant. This is a bandwidth that you just can't possibly ever have wanted to see in your life. And now it's being off to you. Like read writes of 431 gigabytes a second.
Through a wire.
Yeah.
Is it optical or is it copper? I think it's optical.
I think these ones were optical. I don't think they did wire or copper on this. Yeah, nope, sorry. NVIDIA links 100 gigabyte E direct attach copper passive cables.
Ooh.
Running Red Hat Enterprise. Because that's the thing, is that copper has more life to it. You just got to be really careful with it and pay a lot for it up to the beginning to the point.
Just compare it to take a hammer
manage your noise
to an optical.
Yeah.
It's noise management.
Let's break some strands.
Copper.
Yeah, don't break the strands. Don't cross the streams.
Well, also you're worried about you're going to be worried about heat with the copper.
Yeah. Honestly, with that much going through it,
I've never really thought about heat on my network cables, Josh.
That's well, they never went that fast either, did they?
No.
Yeah.
You're right about that.
Circuit breakers for your copper network lines when a certain threshold has been reached. How many amps, I wonder, travel through at those speeds?
Yeah.
Well, and that's why you're
this
limited
raises
to
the question.
a couple of meters at most.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They were close together. But this, and again, in a data center, that's not out of question. But the question is, did they actually reach the physical limitation on the copper? Could these have actually gone faster with a different
What about the
interface?
purity of the copper? What if AudioQuest gets involved? And it's the directional copper, where the grains of the copper flow a certain way.
I think Monster network cables will come to the rescue in that case.
Yeah. I mean, in stranded, versus solid.
Oxygen-free.
It has to be oxygen-free. But, I mean, is it solid core?
This is my $10 billion server installation.
Is it star
How'd you spend that much on the hardware? Well, that was the cables.
LG Now I'll just start off by showing you the title here, the LG Dual Up monitor. Something about the aspect ratio is a little different. Let me keep scrolling here.
Keep scrolling.
Wait, and for
Keep
those
scrolling.
enjoying this via audio, it's a greater than 1:1 aspect ratio. It's 16.
Long monitor
18.
is long.
Not 16:9, not 16:10, 16:18. Taller than it is
16:18.
wide.
So it's two 1080p panels fused together
1440s.
vertically.
Oh, is it two 1440s? Wow.
It's two 1440s.
And I do appreciate the example here of video editing, because this is what it looks like basically when I edit the podcast, except I have a tiny window that shrinks way down, and I have controls to the left and right of it because I'm using a 16:9 aspect monitor.
Suddenly, this doesn't
But I mean,
seem quite as dumb.
No, if you have limited desk space, this gives you two monitors,
Yes.
essentially.
Oh,
Yeah.
and it's better than that. But yes, before I go on to the stand that it ships with, are you not familiar with 2560 by 2880 resolution? Is that
I am not familiar
one of
with
the normal
that.
ones that you use?
Does my GPU support this? I mean,
Good question. But yeah, so it's not just that, but the monitor it ships, or the stand that the monitor ships with, is actually a clamp style.
oh,
So
okay.
it clamps to the back of your desk. They're not even trying to make
Oh.
this thing stand, which also means that you can rotate it into
18 by
That is the
16.
direction.
skate mode, land trits.
What did
You
you,
can flip
what did you
it
call
around.
me?
You're getting so close
you
to
call me?
square. So close to square.
And there are 1:1 aspect ratio, like airline, whatever it is, style monitors.
Yeah, but that's just weird.
Airport control.
It has to be slightly different.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I first saw this, I'm like, "What in the hell were you thinking?" And then I looked at it, and I'm like, "Wow, this doesn't actually make this does make a lot of sense, because
Yeah.
if you're doing like a 16:9 video editing,
Yeah.
you literally have the video up
Yeah,
top
really.
and the editor below.
This is literally the use case too, and for live streaming too. And I see they have like this streamer lady here.
yeah.
Like if you were doing this with like OBS, you could have a full preview of what you're doing, and then have all of your controls down here, or have a separate, like maybe your script or something in the window below it. But it's nice.
Just think
Useful.
if you have two of those.
I
exactly.
know. Yes. Both on those arms.
It's not even really a specialty product when you're marketing to like live streamers or video editors or things like that.
I hear that
So
stuff is
it's-
big these days. I hear that
Yeah,
content
kinda
creators
is.
are big. I see the term content creator on almost every press release now, so
bandied about.
it must be big. What is the price?
Now
on
the
this?
bad
I'm
news is
scrolling.
that they did not list a price. They
Okay.
did not release a release date.
Not like everything else.
Oh well.
Hey, the first time I ever saw the Mac rotated screen for documents was during a Billy Idol music video. I'm trying to remember. It was the girl that knocks on the nerdy guy's door, who's a yuppie, and she starts tearing the place apart and dancing and making him go crazy. He had one of those first rotated aspect monitors, so you could work on documents better. And I
Oh, the
wish that I could-
CRTs that
Yeah, it is
rotated?
Cradle of Love.
Yes.
Yeah.
What was it? What was the song? Jeremy?
Cradle of Love.
Cradle of Love.
Rock the cradle of love. Yes, that's the one.
Who would have thought that
Yeah.
you would be introduced to rotating monitor technology on a Billy Idol video? But that's the.
I mean, I'm from Wyoming. We were not a tech capital at the time. Not until I finally got moving along.
Yeah, they have internet there now.
Yeah.
I hear
They do.
fairly
Pretty decent.
fairly decent.
Not great,
yeah.
but yeah.
Good enough
enough.
to do this. Good enough for this. Look at this. This is
Good
coming to you
enough.
live from Laramie, Wyoming, right now
I'm so sorry.
in quarter HD.
See, packets are the only thing coming out of Laramie right now because we're totally snowed in.
What about methane
How much
gas?
snow do
Is
you
that
have,
coming out of
Josh?
Laramie right now?
Sorry.
I don't know, up to 6 inches now plus.
We got more than that.
Well, we're getting more.
So did we.
All right, picks of the week, and Josh is going to start us off. And I appreciate this pick, Josh, because I wrote up the news post on it. Was it this morning? I think it was this morning. Look at this.
I don't know, but SK Hynix is finally getting in on the 4.0 action with their P41 SSD. Their SSD's pretty dang good. I have no idea what the controller is. All I know is that their firmware and their support and all the other things about it, pretty dang good.
And really freaking fast.
1.4K, 1.4 million IOPS.
Yeah.
That's fast.
Very, very fast. And it's their own controller.
When they came in with their
Aries
3.0
controller.
SSD, it was even though we had introductory 4.0 stuff, they were still very, very competitive across multiple workloads, really high quality parts. And this looks to follow that same vein. 5-year warranty. That's nice. Looks to be as fast as the E18 with the 176 not level. What is it? Stacks. NAND.
Yeah, the 3D NAND.
Layers.
Yes.
176 layer NAND that all the other really super high fast ones are using now. So this looks to be, we don't know prices yet. They should be out within the next 2 months, but I think they're going to be very, very competitive with the top end, and they make a good product. I'm excited.
It says they'll announce pricing and availability sometime later in Q1. But the endurance on this, not only the performance, but the endurance is up to 1,200 terabytes written for the 2 terabyte model, which is the highest in the industry. So that is an exciting looking product. I hope
I had
it
a
is.
chance to check out a couple of their previous generation ones, and they were relatively impressive for the price. So I'm not surprised to see them. They're going to do pretty well with this, I would expect.
Jeremy, I don't see a link here, but under Jeremy it says, I don't know, the 980 Pro 1 terabyte is on sale literally everywhere.
Just find somewhere it is. Like every single place it seems to be on for about 50% off.
Okay.
What are you talking about here?
The 980 Pro. I don't know why it's decided to do it, but if you're looking for something that you already know that it's a good drive, if perhaps maybe a little bit overpriced, and is available now, up here in Canada, literally every retailer I saw had it at 50% off.
Well, this is pretty cheap.
And
$179.99 in the U.S. for the 1 terabyte.
I'm seeing $179.
And if you don't want to shop at Amazon, literally anywhere else you go, it seems to be at this price.
No, it'd be
Actually,
I got
amazing.
one of their
It's only
2 terabytes over Black Thursday for $280.
Yeah.
Or
They're 1
$290.
terabyte.
It was right around there.
And I'm laughing my arse off right now because in the Canada, it's $200.
What is that in freedom
Which would
units?
Freedom
dollars.
170-ish, I think. So technically cheaper.
Kanuki stand Copex.
Regardless, worth taking a look at. Because that is a damn good drive. And honestly, most of the time I'd say it's a little bit more expensive and you should be paying.
Whoa, it's only $156.43.
Oh, wow. Our dollar's down, is it?
Oh, wow.
That's cheap.
Gotta buy it in Canada dollars.
Yeah, I'd
say that out loud.
buy it in Canada and get it shipped down. You'd still save money.
No, you won't.
Yeah, if you're looking for a hardcore PCIe 4.0 SSD, this is a good one. And right now, it's at a price that's quite reasonable.
And it gets 5 stars across the board with 656 reviews on Newegg.com.
I think we gave it a prize, too.
Yeah, and I actually only tested the 512 and the 2 terabyte. The 1 terabyte should be the sweet spot for this family, though, because the 2 terabyte's a little bit lower performing than the 512. So I think the 1 terabyte.
You noticed
was the
that
best.
when you tested it, did you?
Yes. Get the 1 terabyte. Get it on sale. You won't regret it. Except, I don't know, maybe the SK Hynix, though. The Platinum P40.
I don't know.
It's pretty tempting.
Just have to wait and see.
Yep.
Okay. Brett, you have a dual pick here.
I do. They're kind of the same thing, though, but it's sort of personal to me. I'm in the market for a television, and I'm looking at LG's either C1 or G1 in a 55 inch television, and I'm sort of looking at that, and I know it's kind of at the end of the lifespan. Prices are getting pretty good on it. I'm looking to upgrade from a smaller plasma. Finally, I'm still running a plasma television.
Are you kidding? I mean, the prices are outstanding for a C1 right now. It's like $1,300, and they will give you a $200 gift certificate.
Yep, and
it's I'm looking at just go buy a C1. I've got one.
I'm trying to decide whether the G1 is enough of a bump on that or not. Josh, what do you think? Is the G1 enough?
Josh says you get a little bit higher.
It's the light output. It's
kind of HDR 20%. Type output.
Yeah,
but I'm
not going to game on it.
You're not going to notice it in the home theater environment.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, if you're not watching in the middle of the day. The OLEDs, I have an old B1 from 2016. Okay. It's not bright enough during the day with all the windows open.
Right.
But
my C1 is bright enough during the middle of the day. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it is better at night.
But at night, it hurts my eyes unless I turn it way down.
Yeah. Really? Okay. That's an endorsement. However, I'm looking at these. I'm getting ready to buy. It hurts my eyes. Okay. I'm probably going to buy one soon. Then there's an announcement at CES. And I'm like, damn,
Samsung.
Did my purchase get stalled here? So my pick was the Samsung QD OLED and the upcoming Alienware Dell gaming monitor soon to come out.
I think they're lying about the specs on it, but I hope they're not. Because
my God, these things are just
you linked me to their what is a quantum dot site?
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, okay. Sorry about that.
What are quantum dots?
It's a 55-inch curved screen that can go either direction, vertical or horizontal. That's kind of nuts. It's going to be interesting to see.
Crazy. The light output.
We don't know price,
and the blacks on it. It sounds so tasty.
Yeah.
Well, the blacks on
why I think
OLED
they might be lying a bit.
Great, but the question is, and actually, I have to say, here's
the gaming version.
Check out.
Oh, that's the Alienware.
Wendell did an amazing video recently. He used a high-speed camera and just very intelligently and very calmly explained display technology and refresh and actual panel response time, and gave very clear examples on screen to show you, hey, not everything that claims to be 240 hertz or 144 hertz or whatever is. Maybe it can accept that, but the panel itself is not always capable of completely changing from an on to an off state. And he also kind of, a lot of people know this obviously already, but the gray to gray response time, it's BS. Like saying the panel has a 1 millisecond response time, which they all do, is nonsense, because that, if you look at his examples, he's showing you, it goes from like grayish to purplish, and that's a change of gradation, but it is not going from like on to off fast enough to be truly 1 millisecond. If you're talking about like input to display, and even the fastest panels are still like 16 milliseconds behind, and it's just the way it is. But OLED, when he was testing, this is why this new OLED stuff is so exciting. Mm-hmm. OLED is so fast because it's emitting its own light that it truly is displaying just 1 pixel at a time. So then you combine that with quantum dots, which help with the brightness,
and all blue LED backlighting with color shifting to green and red.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's weird how they do it. I have to read up on this because typically quantum dots have been integrated into like an LCD panel.
Correct. Yes.
And
so there's like an LCD
light.
Yeah.
And that looks like it has a backlight as well as being an OLED. And so
I would assume so.
I want to know how that works.
Yeah, I want to see the breakdown.
The color
here.
range is increased. Their coverage is increased. The brightness output is higher. The depth is just so much. The images that I saw were so compelling. And I'm like, man, did I just stall my next television purchase? But then I have to think like, you know what? The next thing is always going to be better.
On your desktop LCD?
What's that?
I guess
Did you see the images on your desktop LCD?
You stop with your logic.
But yeah, so Sebastian's got the perfect thing up there.
On my TN monitor.
The way that they've been doing quantum dot display structure is with the glass substrate, the TFT, then a blue light emitting source above the TFT.
Yeah.
Which is more or less just a power source.
Yes.
For the quantum dots to switch
because
state.
they can get so much energy from a blue light emitting spectrum source.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
The only drawback is that they're ridiculously toxic to make. But we don't care about that anymore. I mean, at this point, the world's burning.
Yeah, I get the most out
Sorry
of it
about that,
before
kids. Don't worry about your future.
You have no
don't
future.
got
No big
one.
deal, but man, these TVs are going to be mint.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my pick.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
My pick is
Yeah, right.
what am I even signed in as? I guess I'm signed into my PC Per account. If you have not heard of this channel before, it's a YouTube channel called Project Farm. I don't know how he started, what his background is. All I know is this guy makes the most compelling videos testing just regular tools, regular household type things like scissors, screwdrivers, penetrating oil. Just you can look at these breakdowns. I love this furnace review. Best furnace filters. That was great.
I just love how we've moved on from mineral oil to penetrating oil.
Is this Project Farm?
Yeah, it's Project Farm. So if you haven't heard of Project Farm, go check it out if you have any interest in I'm looking at new screwdrivers. He does very good scientific testing of just stuff.
He's got so many lawnmowers at that place. It's not even.
Yeah,
funny.
he does.
He's done all the oil, experiments and the oil additive stuff, and
I've probably watched 60, 70 this guy's videos.
Yeah, I was watching this Boots one the other night. If I can't sleep, I'm just watching U.S. versus German pliers. Which ones are better? And it's
German.
It's the screwdriver one. Where is that? Best screwdriver. This was a great video because he'll.
Spoiler: it's not a Phillips.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, that's you Canadian bastard.
Actually, this Craftsman. I have this Craftsman set here. It's like $18 on Amazon. It was one of the best performers. He cuts them all off, puts them in a drill, screws stuff in, tests it, different applications, shows you macro photography, how strong is the handle.
He quantifies it he's got measuring devices,
Yes.
So he's got numerics.
This is not subjective testing. He shows you up close before and after putting in so many screws. How much wear was there on the actual head, I guess.
Right, and torque measurements, time.
Look at that. See, there's wear after a certain number of screws, that kind of stuff. It's fascinating. If you're in the market for something like this, like a new pair of pliers, or which channel locks are best? Is it the actual channel lock brand?
Those portable battery packs with the capacitor.
Oh, yeah.
What temperatures do they operate at? How big an engine will they turn over? How much load do they really have? He's got load testers and stuff that work on those. Drills, drill drivers, just all kinds of great stuff.
The furnace filter one was great because he built a box. It was like a plexiglass box so you could see what was going on. Had the furnace fan, and then had a particle meter below the filter, and had a air. What is that tool called? It measures air resistance.
The air quality measurement, or what
and so he used a bag of flour actually as an example of. He poured the bag of flour over the filter, and then would use the particle meter to determine how much of the flour actually got through the filter. And then he was testing resistance without anything on the filter, straight out of the package, versus covered in flour. And it was pretty interesting. What it boiled down to was get a filter with more pleats, essentially. Because the filters with more pleats,
surface area.
Yes,
Dense.
and it's less dense, so there's better airflow, but it still does a good job of filtering. So just that kind of stuff. Anyway, that's all
what you're going to learn here.
I know. That's all I have. That's all we have for you this week at PC Per. The podcast. I don't know. This is a terrible outro.
Yeah, welcome back to the new year.
2022.
It's 2022. You still can't buy anything. CES they shouldn't have even held it, but most of the big names backed out.
Have any of your local news companies shown any video from there?
Like B-roll, if it was provided.
One of my local news guys have someone down there. And so they're in the main hall. The booths aren't even touching each other.
Yeah.
Like there are literal gaps between each booth, which is if you've never actually seen the CES main hall, it is insane. If they could figure out a way to stack booths on top of each other, they already would have and done it. You got like a 5-foot square space if you were big. They're sprawling out, and he showed the background. I could see floor. In fact, I could barely see any people, because in an unusual CES, you wouldn't be able to tell what the floor was because it would be people. Wall to wall sea of people.
By the way, speaking
it
of
actually
Phison,
might have been fun to kind of go
of
because there wouldn't be any taxi lines, bus lines.
True.
You could get to any meeting without bouncing into 100 people.
But so many stayed home.
The people could probably got.
Yeah, but you'd be still taken out to dinner. So
yeah,
that's true. That's one of the things I was explaining to my wife. It's like, yeah, I can cover it all from here, but I don't get free food and booze this way.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we do not.
It's like I was laughing because I got a notification from Pepcom. It's like, hey, join our virtual Pepcom. What is this? Like, the whole reason you go to digital experience is for the food and drinks, and also to get a little preview of what you're going to see the next day when CES officially opens.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll find 2 or 3 gems during that entire thing.
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
Or at least good memories.
Network, talk to your PR person face to face. You talk to via email all year. That's nice. But by the way, one of the posts I did was from Fantex. I just wanted to show this real quick. The Fantex.
Oh, I like this case.
XT.
This
is not
amuses
two different cases. This is the same case. It extends upward to provide you with more or less room depending on your needs.
Now, is it a pole, or do you just pet it on the top and it gets taller?
I don't think it's motorized. It's not in-wind, so it's not going to have a motor or anything in it.
So you got to pull on it.
The basis of it looks a lot like a Dan case's.
Yeah.
A little bit wider, but then you can add height to do different things with the front, I guess. Because it's like liquid cooler compatible if you extend it upwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of an
for radiator
idea. It's
like
one
a 360.
case, but it extends to your cooling performance needs.
I like their Evolve line. I always have.
Yeah, it's really sharp looking aluminum panels on the outside, very premium.
Yeah.
If they set up motorized motors on it so that it acted as a bellows, that would actually probably really improve the airflow.
So the case breathes.
Yeah, up and down.
I think we talked about that last year, the bellows computer case. Do we have anything else, or should we say goodbye to everybody before I end?
Let's say goodbye.
Kent is advocating that we get him one of those Fantex cases to review.
Oh, the Shift. All right,
Yes.
I'll email them.
All right.
Well, so concludes another episode of the PC Perspective Podcast. Tune in next week when we will, in all likelihood, return with another week's worth of news, reviews, stuff. CES will be over,
stuff.
of course, by then. There's always more.
God,
there's
I hope
always
so.
more press releases in PDF
Always.
format.
Yeah, and don't worry. In 2 months from now, we'll start getting notifications about CES 2023.